doing? What's up? So, we have some Terrifier fans out here. Yeah? I didn't hear you guys.
Yeah!
Better, yeah. So, how many people here are new Terrifier fans?
Yeah. The secret.
My husband is the only one? Okay. Well, that's good. I'm converting him, by the way. So there's that. All right, guys, we're about ready to get clowny. Who's ready to get clowny?
Yeah.
Everyone's ready to get clowny? You ready to clown around a little bit, huh?
Yeah. Terrifier.
Come on, guys. Well, it's Terrifier. Let's go. Yeah. All right, guys. We have Damien Leone.
Yeah!
And Arthur Clown himself, David Howard Thornton. Welcome, gentlemen. This is good enough, though. How is everybody doing?
Doing well. Good to see you again.
Good to see you guys again as well.
How are y'all doing? What's up, everybody? Thanks for hanging out.
Here. Yeah. So I asked everybody before you came, do we have any new Terrifier fans here? And my husband was the one that raised his hand, so we've got a convert.
Ain't better late always one.
I'll turn them. I'll turn them on. Okay. So this movie is so interesting because it started off as a short film and then like an independent anthology film, and then it evolved into what it is today. Damien, how did that happen? Like, what's the process on that?
Oh, yeah. Well, he's been around for a long time. I
Yeah.
created him in around 2005, I believe, for my first official short film, which was going to be like my showcase as a director and special makeup effects artist. So it was, I just wanted to pack it out with as many creatures and cool demons and stuff, and I wanted to throw a clown in there. So I had this idea of a clown. This was the inception. It was a clown terrorizing this woman on a city bus in the middle of the night. She's just all alone. It's a creepy neighborhood, middle of the night. Comes to a stop.
On Halloween, so everyone's already in a costume.
No, it wasn't
It's
on
not?
Halloween
Oh,
to
it
make it
seemed
even
like it
weirder.
was.
So it's like a Tuesday.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
A Tuesday in February.
It felt like Halloween, but maybe that's just because I'm used to taking the train in the middle of the night in Chicago.
Well, this was just the initial idea, and then a clown gets on. It's even creepier if it's not Halloween. So all of a sudden, it's off-putting. And then he sits next to her, and he's staring at her, and he just pulls out a horn, and he's very playful, and he's making her uncomfortable, and it just goes from uncomfortable to more sinister and intense as it's going, and eventually he's trying to stick her with a needle. So it was just that idea. I don't know where it came from. These things just pop into your head sometimes when you're obsessed with horror movies. And then it was just about what does he look like, and then we went into it was want to stay away from Pennywise as much as possible. So I have a lot to thank Pennywise for. So if you look at the both
Not
of
that
them,
there's anything wrong with Pennywise, but
no, that was the reason. Well, because he's the king, still is the king of killer clowns. So I didn't want to step on his toes. Paying he's all the respect in the world for him.
He's got big toes. Big fluffy toes.
Yeah. But then, so when I eventually made that and showed people, everybody liked it, but they all kept talking about Art the Clown. Like that was that's what they all unanimously were like, yeah, it's cool, but that clown is crazy. You really have something with him. You should explore him more. And I was like, okay. And then we made a short film just solely about Art the Clown, and that was called Terrifier. And we threw that on YouTube, and at the time it was getting a lot of hits. And this was along like 2011, even before like YouTube was what it is now. And a producer was scouring YouTube looking for Halloween-based short films by filmmakers. And he found Terrifier and reached out to me. He's like, oh man, I'm making this anthology and I want your clown to be like on the poster. That clown's crazy. And I was like, that's cool. I was like, I actually have another short film with him. I was like, this will add up to like a half an hour of footage. I was like, how about instead of looking for now other filmmakers, you let me direct the entire movie, and maybe we could just like fill it in and pad it out to be a feature. And then that turned into All Hallows Eve. And then every time we would make something with Art the Clown, like the audience would grow and they would just, people just wanted more and more and more. And eventually I got to make Terrifier, which is what I always wanted to make, because my now producer, Phil Falcone's the only one to give me the money to actually make that. So
well, we love Phil. Don't
we love Phil.
Yes. Who here has seen All Hallows Eve? Oh wow,
cool.
we got half and half, guys. Go check it out. It's on Tubi, so is Terrifier. So you can watch it back to back, which I recently did, by the way, because we're covering both All Hallows Eve and Terrifier for our podcast, 2 separate episodes.
Oh.
I haven't decided which one we're going to put out first, though. But it's such an interesting growth. And when I was breaking down the All Hallows Eve, I was like, you really took the best parts of that movie and put it in Terrifier. Not maybe in the same setting, but the gas station scene and everything. It's the best parts into Terrifier. So it's really, actually, brilliant.
Thank you. I always try and listen to people. We've talked about this before. Like I love listening, getting feedback and critiques and everything, and really paying attention to what works and what doesn't. And I try and please the audience as much as I can.
So when you were developing art, maybe this happened together. Did you pick the physical first, or how he looks, or how he acts first? Because he has a very distinctive personality without even talking.
Yeah.
And I know you were not the original art, but
Right.
you kind of grew into it.
So the personality grew, especially now once Dave came into it. We're constantly evolving. But I would say because it was the idea, so I mean, I knew that he was that really, stone-faced, didn't speak, playful, still playful, like the way he starts. You're very uncertain if this is just a guy messing with me or until it gets really sadistic. But it was just, he wasn't a slasher at the beginning. I mean, in that first short film, all he does was stick the girl with a needle.
It was just as terrifying, though.
Right. Because
You had to get vaccinated. That's how you got to do it now. It's like, hey.
We're getting there fast, huh?
Ivermectin's next step.
So yeah, I mean, you could imagine being in that situation, which makes it very terrifying. But then, I mean, so I would say it started a little bit with his personality, and then I went into, well, what does he look like? And I said this, I definitely owe a little bit to a Twilight Zone episode called 5 Characters in Search of an Exit, and there's a clown in that episode. It doesn't look quite like Art the Clown, but if you see it, you can see where I pulled some inspiration from that. But I mean, I really took a bunch of inspiration from, his face is very much like comic book Joker. Doing that, I wanted to give him like a classic devil face as well, like the pointy features, the pointy chin, the nose,
Which
all that kind of stuff. So just like a lot of classic things that I grew up loving and appreciating with monsters and devils, and boil it all up into.
So I know the story, but other people might not, and I think it's great, so let's tell it again. Your audition, David.
Because like she said, I wasn't the original art. I had a big shoes to fill with Mike Gianelli, who was original art, who I think did a fantastic job setting the foundation.
You really did.
He really did. He made my job easier because I had a lot to go off of. And I was lucky going into that audition. I had already seen All Hallows Eve. I knew the character, so I was like, okay, I already had a little bit of an idea what the character was like, so I didn't have to go in there totally blind. But I go into this audition that my agency had gotten me because they were looking for a tall, skinny guy who had clowning or physical comedy experience to play art. I'm like, that sounds perfect for me. So I'm like, yes, send me in, coach. So I go in there and I walk in the room, and all these other people in this room have scripts in their hands, and I'm like, I don't have a script. And I even go up to the front desk and I'm like, hey, can I get a script? They're like, oh, you should have gotten one. I'm like, oh no. This is my first time ever auditioning for a major film role.
Right.
And I'm like, oh Jesus, I'm perfect for this, and I'm already going in there and I'm screwing things up. And I was about to get really mad at my agents because you guys never sent me any sides or anything like that. I'm like, oh my gosh. And they call me in the room and I'm like, I am so sorry, but I don't have a script. Can I please get one so I can just sit out there and just give me about 10 minutes? I'll be ready. They're like, oh no, you don't need one. Art doesn't talk. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So what do you want me to do then? They're like, oh, just come up with a scene where you decapitate a guy and you're happy about doing it. I'm like, cool. Can I have a few minutes to think? Like, no, just go ahead and just do it. I'm like, okay. And this is where I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with me, what's going on inside of my head. I guess I went to some really weird places inside of my head that I just turned things off and just went with my guts. And I think this is where I think everybody that's in acting needs to have some kind of improv training, because you never know when you're going to get thrown into a position like this. And so I was like, okay, sure, let's go. And I did this whole scene where I like just kind of skip in happy, and I come up behind my victim, kind of sneak up behind him very cartoonishly, and knock him out. I take out a hacksaw and saw off his head, and I pick it up, and I taste it, and don't like the taste of the blood, so I take out some salt and season it. Taste again, kind of give a thumbs up, kind of fade in the blood a little bit, and skip out on my merry way. And that's what basically got me the part.
It was the salt shaker.
that detail.
It's just, you just never know. None of that was planned. It's just like, I don't know where that came from. But sometimes you just got to go with your gut and go with whatever comes out, and that's what came out, and I'm glad I went with my gut.
I mean, we really lucked out.
Yeah, for sure.
We really lucked out because we only saw like 7 people came in that day, and you know, you were probably like the 6th person to come in, and for the 6th person to come in, and it is Dave. I mean, it's Art the Clown now. I just knew, like, watching him, I was like, physically, he's exactly what I want. Like his smile, I wanted Art the Clown. Even like as opposed to the first Mike Gianelli who played Art, I always envisioned Art to be taller and skinnier. I thought that would be creepier. So when Dave came in, I said, ooh, right there, that's what I'm looking for. Now let's see if this guy can, you know, what his clown shtick is. And as soon as he flipped that switch, you know, I was sitting next to my producer Phil, and he's doing everything, and we're like nudging each other and laughing and giggling. And then, you know, and then when Dave's done killing the guy, he just goes right back to me and Dave, like this like childish giggle. He's like, yeah, you know.
Was that good?
I was like, yeah. I was like, yeah,
okay?
man. Very good. I was like, I like this guy. And that was it. We saw like one other person, 2 other people came in after Dave, and I was just like, I looked at my producer, I'm like, what else are we possibly looking for? I was like, let's have this guy come in, let's throw the prosthetic on him, and let's see that again now with the makeup.
Yeah. That was fun too, because like that was my first time in the makeup, and I was like just playing in the bathroom, just making faces in the mirror, because I like to do that when I get new makeup, because I want to see what all I can do with the makeup.
What it looks like.
Yeah. Well, they had just ordered pizza, and they're like, "This is your final test. This is your final audition. You've got to go and answer the door." It's hard. I'm like, okay. And it's in the middle of the day in Staten Island, New York, and I just open the door, and I'm just like standing there, and the pizza guy's like, no. I'm like, he's like, yeah, nope.
So did you drop the pizza and run?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, he let they come up. I was like, no, man, that's okay. He's like, here's the money.
There was a little girl next door.
Oh yeah, the neighbors next door. They're like,
terrifying.
they're like, go out there, and like the kids are like, and the mom got really mad. And I'm like, oh, this works. This is effective. It's like clown in broad daylight. People are like, no.
So, David, true or false, you do or do not have mime experience?
I don't actually.
Thought so,
I
but
don't.
everyone is saying that. I want
The legends that are growing.
Right, I want to clear the
I
record
went
right
to
here.
mime school. I'm like, where is that?
Who started
There's
that?
so much false information
I
out there. It's
know.
ridiculous.
Like I said, it's came from the internet.
Internet.
True or false?
No, I did not go to mime school. My background, I'm basically self-taught. I didn't actually go to school for acting. I actually got a degree in elementary education of all things. And I had just done theater my whole entire life, and I just learned through observing actors that were my betters. And I always figured that's how you learn. You watch the masters and you learn from them and adapt and make it your own. And that's what I would do. And I had a great education just growing up in, physical comedy. I always loved slapstick. I loved the great silent comedians of old, like Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin, all those guys, and of course Marx Brothers. And my aunt, who actually lives here in Atlanta right now, I just had lunch with her today, she gifted me a box set of Mr. Bean videos when I was a kid.
It all makes sense now.
Yeah, that's where it really started. I was like, oh wow, and I would just sit there and watch those videos over and over and over and over and over, and I would just bring that to what I did a lot. I did a lot of children's theater back in Huntsville. That's where I'm originally from, Huntsville, Alabama, and we had a great children's theater there called Fantasy Playhouse. And it's not like what it sounds like. It's like, no, it's for kids. But that's where I perfected those skills, because I watched a lot of Mr. Bean. I also watched a lot of Jim Carrey at the time, because that's when Jim Carrey was big, and I loved that style of comedy. And that's what I really started honing my skills. And I was very lucky later on, after I moved to New York, I got cast in the national tour of How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the musical, and I was actually here in Atlanta back in 2011. I was here with the tour, and we performed at the Fox. But our Grinch was Stephen Carl, who was Robbie Rotten on Lazy Town, if anybody's familiar with that show. And Stephen unfortunately passed away from cancer a few years ago, but he was an amazing physical comedian. He actually went to clown college in Iceland, trained in that field. So I was his understudy as the Grinch. And he was able to really take me under his wing on those 5 years I toured with Grinch and really fine-tune skills. And it's like, I see what you're doing here, now let me help you modify this and take you where you really need to go with this. And so when we're on set for Terrifier, I would have those moments, okay, how am I gonna handle this scene? What would Stefan do in this situation? I'm like, okay, now I know how I'm gonna handle it. He would do this. I'm like, no, that's Stefan. And I would sometimes even like just contact Stefan over like Facebook, like, hey, dude, I got this scene. What do you think about this idea? It's like, oh, that's great. Why don't you do this? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, cool. And he was just a great source of inspiration. But that's who I learned from. I just learned from the greats, and I just did my own thing with it. I just never figured I would be able to turn something that because I'd always done comedy. I'd never done horror before. I never figured I would be able to turn something that had always been comedy and always been for kids and something into something for adults and horror. And like, wow, I can do all this great physical comedy, but kill people while I'm doing it. This is awesome.
Kind of a dream, right?
Yeah, definitely a dream come true. This is great. Because I love playing villains. Something this is even better.
Well, like you said, this is like the Joker of the horror world, right?
Oh, yes. And he's my favorite villain of all time, too, so I definitely put some Joker in it.
Right.
You have to put a little bit of Joker in him.
So you guys are horror fans already, right?
Oh,
In
yes.
Damien
Huge.
True or false, you were named after the Omen.
That's very true.
Again, internet guys. You know?
Oh, yeah, that's very true.
Wow.
Yeah, my mother loves all movies, but she especially had a soft spot for horror movies. And she would let me watch virtually anything that I wanted from the time I was 4 on. So I fell in love with horror movies, and I was obsessed with the cover of at the mom and pop video store she used to take me to. The first cover that really ever spoke to me from the horror section was the cover of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the VHS cover. And I was just, because it is a drawing, and I was already obsessed with cartoons and artwork, and I would doodle a lot as a kid, and I was like, I have to see what that is. And my mother was like, I don't know, and my aunt actually talked her into it. She's like, that's fine, let him do it.
My aunt got me into it too.
Really?
Yes, I spent a lot of time at my grandma's house, and we rented Suspiria one night.
Oh.
I was 8 years old, and I'm like ballet and witches?
Yeah.
Yes.
What else is there?
Right? And from then on. And then my second movie was Retribution. Has anyone seen Retribution?
I actually have.
1988.
No, I haven't.
You've actually not seen a horror movie?
Really? Dude.
This guy's like
Dude.
an encyclopedia when it comes to horror.
Older horror movies, though. No, I'm not good with
No,
them.
like 1988, not too old.
No.
But no, that was my second one, and that was like, coffin done, all in, right? great.
Wow.
But yeah, thanks, Aunt Deanna. Love you. I owe all of my life to you. So, Emmett, you also enjoy horror as well?
Yeah, I was late to the game though, because my mom was a chicken when it came to horror films. So she thought The Fall of the House of Usher from back in the day with like Vincent Price was the scariest movie she had ever seen in her life. And so that tells you a lot. It's like, ah! So
Your first horror movie is mind blowing. Like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
very late to the game.
Yeah, I mean, I had seen little bits and pieces, like I had seen like a Poltergeist when I was a little kid and stuff like that, because like my parents had like a viewing party and stuff like that. But I had never really sat down and watched a whole entire horror movie until my senior year in high school, when Scream 2 came out. Because I was doing a production of Christmas Carol, the cast wanted to go out and see Scream 2, and there was a girl in the cast that I had a crush on. And I'm like, they're all like, hey, let's go. I'm like, I can't chicken out in front of her. Okay, fine, I will go. Oh, I'm gonna make a fool of myself. Oh my God, no. And I had the most fun. I was like, this is amazing. What is my mom talking about? These movies are awesome. I loved it. And then after that, I was like, okay, now I have to go back and watch Scream.
Right.
it's like, now I know what everybody's talking about.
Right.
But after that, like the next year when I went to college, my roommate came from a very, very strict Southern Baptist family. He had never seen a boob before. and so he was like, well, that's what they look like? I'm like, yes, Chad, yes. It's like the whole, like, you know, like that song from Willy Wonka came and it was like, come with me. So I think he went through his head when he first saw it. Shame on me for talking about that. But yeah, so we would go every weekend in our freshman year of college and just start renting like stacks of tapes from the movie gallery of all these horror movies. We're like, let's go watch all the Jason movies one weekend. Let's watch all the Nightmare on Elm Street movies one weekend. You know, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, all of that. So we were just trying to catch up. Like, wow, these are awesome.
Yeah. So in our podcast, The Dolls of Horror, we have a segment that is favorite kill. Terrifier. What's your favorite kill?
Ooh, of course, the hacksaw scene.
Yeah. Hands down, right? Can we demonstrate?
Can we demonstrate it?
Wanna try it?
I heard you might be able to demonstrate it. Is that true?
We'll find out.
Did you stretch?
Okay. You guys ready?
Yeah.
All right.
All right, good.
Closer.
Closer. Okay. Here we go.
Woo!
Yeah, tuck that in.
You can do it.
There we go. All right, go for it, kid. Not anymore. Made it too much. She's split up on it.
I did it and I didn't fall down.
I didn't drop her. Okay, that would been horrible. It's
Horrible.
Film, and I'm like, oh.
More like I did it and I didn't kick them in the face, just so you know.
That would have been fun.
I could fall out of a handstand and not die, but I was like, please don't let me kick somebody. That was awesome. Thank you.
Great job.
We need to do that more often.
Great job.
Invigorating.
That was a lot of fun. Okay, guys, can we get some audience questions? Does anyone have anything they want to say?
So we met you guys a while back. We're actually from Staten Island, and we were talking to you guys about that. And I know you were talking about how in the first movie, and we definitely know Staten Island is a little eerie at night. Your location.
Well, depends where you are.
Yeah, right. But you were talking about your locations and how you stumbled upon that one set place. So obviously we know the Terrifier 2 is coming out. Did you guys find a lot of spots locally in Staten Island, or did you guys kind of branch out for that?
No, we branched out big time for part 2. So part 2 primarily takes place in a barn upstate New York. We have a huge barn that we built a lot of sets in. So the majority of the movie takes place there. But we filmed some in Jersey. We filmed a big set piece in Manhattan in a big costume shop.
We did film on Staten Island.
Yeah, we filmed in a high school in Staten Island. A few places. Yeah, we were all over the place. This is like Part 2 has whereas Part 1 takes place in one location for the most part, Part 2 is all over the place.
We
It's
did
constantly-
actually have a funny moment there. Is that this won't really? I'll word it so it's not revealing anything. But there was a funny moment one night when we were filming out there in Staten Island, and I'm attacking my victim, and people were starting to come into work that morning because we were racing against the sun. And this car pulls up while I'm on top of my victim, just going to town on him.
Oh,
And the car pulls up, and I'm just like, and they just. I'm like, well, we must be doing something right. Oh boy, I hope the cops don't come soon.
Right.
Which happened another night.
Did it? What scene was that?
Oh, we can't.
We can't tell you the scene, but it happened.
Very funny.
I look at if the cops show up during Terrifier filming, it's a good sign that we're onto something, right? Because it's
Yeah,
happened
because
both-
someone believed
both
it.
times, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I saw another one over here somewhere. Question? No? Did I not? All right. There's that.
Our buddy Rick just painted my mask from 13X Studios, and since you both filmed in Staten Island, I want to know what your favorite Wu-Tang song is.
Oh. Bible or Cream, maybe? Yeah.
Yeah, I say same, yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Sir.
I just want to start off by saying the part where David hooked me at, my favorite part of the whole movie was the pizza shop scene where he walks in and just sits down and he's staring and staring and she looks over and he's doing like this. So I want to know if it was a lot of that stuff improv or just just like Damien say, just do what you do, man.
Yeah, that bit there, he just turned the camera on and goes, just make a bunch of faces.
Nice.
And they forgot to tell me to stop, so I just kept making faces and faces and faces.
They're the best faces, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only face, the classic smile that you always do, like that one, and there's one face that he makes before, I think it's before you go off on all those faces at the table. You have this really crazy smile. That was the only one where I told him specifically,
Like
I
big
wanted to-
eyes,
Yeah.
big eyes, big
Guys,
smile.
big teeth.
And there were even more because he just went off. So then I had to just choose my favorite ones in the editing room. Yeah, that was all him. That one.
I think I had one.
Through the hole.
There's so many.
But
Yeah, you were blowing kisses at her. You were doing all kinds of things. So,
it's crazy.
But that's the fun. Is I always know what I want, what I'm looking for. We'll always do that take or a couple of those, and then I have Dave go off. And
We have our own lingo between the two of us now, where it's what kind of face do you? I'll just ask him what kind of face do you want here? It's do the big crazy face or this thing. Something. It's this is we. No one else knows what we're saying, but we're oh yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yes, sir.
Alright, so doing Art the Clown cosplay, I completely feel with what you talk about once you become that, the way you act and everything. It's amazing. But I talk about the pizza shop and everything. One of the coolest things that a lot of people do with either whether I had my whip, from you first did in giving girls rings.
Oh yeah.
Especially if they've seen it.
Oh yeah.
So when I met you the first time here a couple of years ago, I had some friends come up to me and they're like, there's these girls in the bathroom, and they're like, we got a ring from Art the Clown. Yeah, once you become cosplay and everything like that, you do it, you definitely.
It's so freeing, isn't it?
It is, it's pretty awesome.
I used to cosplay as Joker a lot, and I would just have so much fun just messing, because it's you kind of just become the character and people love it. So you can get away with it. I also, when I did Grinch, I got to do some press stuff there in Manhattan, and I was supposed to go back to the office after doing some press stuff, and they were going to take the car there. I'm no, I want to walk through the streets of Manhattan. And they're okay. And so I was just going through Manhattan and just being the Grinch and messing with people. I would go to people sitting down in the cafe and I'd just grab their bread and start eating their bread. And they first see someone grab their bread, what? And they see me and I'm oh, wow, you want this? And they're oh, it's the Grinch! I could get away with anything. It was the most freeing thing. You're oh, it's the Grinch, it's the Grinch!
You're a celebrity then.
It's crazy.
Even though it's a cartoon, now the cartoon is in front of you.
Yeah.
And it's just like with the cosplayers, we might not, we would do get to get art and costume, but you don't get to get Freddy in costume all the time. But if someone's cosplaying as Freddy, you get to take a picture, and it's really close to the next best thing.
It really is. I love cosplay. That's one of my favorite things here at conventions. images of seeing all the different cosplay. I was like the Mike Myers out with the bush earlier. I was like, this is
The
brilliant.
Bush guy was awesome.
That's I just see this bush and I'm like, what the heck is there with? Oh, there he
Dude
is.
brought his own bush.
Like, look at that! Oh, look at him.
Cute.
No, he's hiding behind that bush. He's up there good.
I saw some questions over here. Yes.
I have a question. I know throughout All Hallows Eve, Art the Clown is kind of perceived as kind of a supernatural character or beyond human, but then like in Terrifier, he's kind of a human psycho murderer, but then it's like towards the end, the magic happens. So is Terrifier supposed to be like a prequel to All Hallows Eve in a way with his character?
No, Terrifier is actually its own standalone
Right.
movie. But I always wanted to do the same thing with the character, which was eventually lead him into the supernatural world, especially if you plan on doing sequels, because, you know, like, let's face it, all of our favorite slashers eventually become supernatural on some level, unless it's like Scream, where you just keep switching up the killer. So, because you can't have that many, you know, extreme conflicts between your final girl and the hero, you know, and the villain without killing him. I mean, they take too many death blows. So eventually you're gonna kill the guy. So I said, let's just go through one whole movie with him being as human as possible, and then let's set him up for the next one. Let's go right into him being supernatural. So in part 2, we really, yeah, he's full on supernatural. We really explore that, but we don't, I mean, I can't give away too much. Like, we don't take away anything that you loved. Like, he's still very much the Art the Clown from part 1.
He's still grounded.
Yeah.
He's not like
It's true.
like walking on ceilings.
No,
and
he
stuff like
still
that.
like has like the same rules, but
Does he still have his bag of tricks?
Oh,
of
yes.
course,
Yes.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
always. A lot of new things come out of it in this movie.
What did you decide to put in his bag of tricks? Like, it's such an eclectic group of weapons. Like,
Oh,
just
yeah.
say, maybe this.
Well, that's the best thing. I mean, yeah, I wanted to give him like a Santa Claus bag, like
Yeah.
just like where you could just pull out whatever he wants. That's another thing, because it's not like he's Freddy where he has one signature weapon,
Yes.
and every killer, like Michael Myers or Jason, like they have to find that other weapon somewhere. And I didn't want to have that problem, so I said I'm just going to give him, have him carry around everything in a giant trash bag. And whatever I want him to pull out, I'll just have him pull it out of there.
It's like Felix the cat with the magic bag of tricks. That's what I love about that bag. There's like anything can be in that
It's
bag.
like Mary Poppins,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, it's
Exactly.
just bottomless, right?
He's practically perfect in every way.
Absolutely. More questions? I swear I saw some more hands. Okay.
Smear shit on anything.
You can't say that. That would ruin surprises. Maybe.
It's possible. It's possible.
Anything's possible.
Shit happens. So, you know, bad stuff does happen. I tell you that. I will say he's very depraved in this one. So it's like you haven't seen nothing yet.
Oh, dear.
It's like, oh yeah, he's. I like to think that, you know, now that he's come back, he's a little bit more confident in himself, a little bit more cocky. He's a lot more gutsy with some things.
Yeah, as if he wasn't enough at first.
Yeah. He's like, oh, now I can really play. It's like, then like limits have been taken off of him. It's like, let's really play with my food now.
Damien, where did you come up with the name Terrifier? It's unique.
Yeah. Thank you. So, I used to deliver flowers for a long time. And so I would drive around constantly all day, and I actually love driving and listening to music, and it's where I get most of my ideas. So I got so many ideas while delivering flowers for Terrifier, like over the years. So one
Is
day,
that where the flower came from?
it may have, probably. Yeah. But so I was driving around one day, and I'm like, what do I call this movie? I don't want to call this movie the title of the character, because all my slasher movies, they have a different name. It's not called Freddy, it's not called Jason. So I was like, I have to come up with something other than Art the Clown to call this character. And I said, I don't know, but all I know is I want this was the short film at the time. I said, I want the experience to feel like you're the audience. I'm getting them onto a roller coaster that just takes off and doesn't stop. And I said, all right, I have to come up with a cool name for like a scary roller coaster, and I just started thinking of all these names, and I'm like, the Terrifier. I'm like, that sounds really cool. So that's where it came from, and so it's not necessarily him. It was for the experience that I wanted to give the audience. So it's really the title of the film as an experience as opposed to him. But now I love where he basically is the Terrifier. Like little kids will call him the Terrifier and stuff like that. So I love that. Let it have a life of its own.
Yeah, Art the Clown is the Terrifier.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. That's interesting. Any more? Yes, ma'am.
Mine's more really a statement. I mentioned this to you earlier, but like I'm kind of new on board with this. Somehow I don't know how I missed it. I've been watching horror my whole life to the point where like when COVID happened, the best decision I made in 2020 was getting Shudder. My husband loves horror movies, but I basically wore him out. I don't have like I'll watch anything. It doesn't matter. I'll watch anything. Whether it's rated, I'm gonna watch it. He's like, oh my gosh, this is so bad. And I'm like, it's fine. Anyways, I was watching Terrifier on my own in the bedroom, and he came in the hacksaw scene at that very moment, and he said, "What the hell are you watching?" And I was like, "Honey, a horror movie. You need to fucking watch right now. So sit down. I'm gonna hit the rewind. You're gonna watch this with me." And he thoroughly enjoyed it, and I just wanted to say that as it had been a while since there was a horror movie like that he really was not tired of seeing like the basic, like
Oh, wow.
so it was very. I just want to like give you accolades for I don't know how I missed it, but it's fantastic, and I got my husband into it, and I was like, sit down, let me start it over. I mean,
Thank
maybe
you.
the hacksaw scene, so you kind of have an idea.
Yeah, that's the thing. Thank you for sharing that, though.
My husband had a similar reaction, and I also, yes, and I also too said, you have to watch this, and he's like, nope.
Isn't it funny how people always walk into those kind of
Yeah.
scenes?
Well, he was
It's
just,
like, of all the
it
stuff,
was like,
like,
it was the clown, it wasn't even like the hacksaw, it was the clown.
It was in the bedroom. I'm walking in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just chilling, and
like,
what
why
are you watching?
upside
I'm
down naked? Oh,
like, yes,
oh no, what are you watching?
yes.
No, mine stayed, but yeah.
Eventually we got through it, and he's a convert now, so.
One of the top 5 horror movie kills, I think.
Yeah, I agreed.
Thank you.
100%. And I was late to the Terrifier game too. My friend Leanne told me about it once. I was at a 90210 trivia night, of all things. Because that's my other thing. The only thing I love more than horror movies is 90210. Fun fact about me. And she also loves horror movies. She goes, have you seen this movie Terrifier? It's been out maybe like 3 years. And I've never heard of it. But I knew I'd seen the character, the cover. She goes, girl, you gotta watch it, but there's this one scene and you're just gonna go, what? And you're gonna go, really? And then I said, what is it? She goes, you'll know when you get there. And then I watched it on my phone. So it wasn't even on the big screen. I'm like, oh! Ooh. I'm like, okay. And the one thing I love, I don't know if this is your decision, but when he gets to like the neck, and he's just so frustrated, he can't get through the neck.
That just really happened, I think.
Yeah.
I love Art because he's kind of human in the fact that he's like, why isn't this gun working? The bag ripped? Stupid bag. And he's just so
I
puzzled.
think it's those human moments
Yeah.
why people really appreciate him, because they can relate to him more. It's not just
Yeah.
like a mindless
No.
thing. There's something going on.
He
Yeah,
has
it's
those
like gun
imperfections.
jammed, it's like,
Yeah, it's like,
He gets annoyed, he gets frustrated. It was actually during the hacksaw scene, I actually told Dave at one point to, and when he gets in the middle, he actually stops and he starts like panting, like wiping his brow because it's taking too long.
Yeah.
And it was really good, it was really funny, but I didn't want it to break up the tension of the scene as a whole.
Right.
So,
Right.
I don't know if it was a
Deleted
good idea.
scenes.
Yeah.
Start doing stretches. Oh god, stretching. Cramping up, cramping up.
No, my favorite is when his gun runs out of bullets and he's like, he has to go get another gun.
Well, I remember when the sheet ripped, I was like, well, what am I gonna do with this instant? Because she's got to go and grab the spike on the ground. I'm like, what am I gonna do to kill time while she's just
Right.
grabbing the spike?
Right.
Well, like the guy's so confident with himself. He's like, she's not getting away.
Yeah.
What the heck?
I thought this was stronger.
This is not a hefty bag.
They're my favorite moments, I gotta say. They really, really are.
I love those moments too, because that's the thing, is that that's what I think it makes it more relatable to an audience.
It also makes it charming if you mentioned food, it's like, it has a little bit of
Right, the
humor.
levity comes in.
Right.
Be like, remind you. That is
That's
a good point.
levity.
Yeah, because what we do is so brutal. So it's
Yeah.
nice to, you don't want the audience just leaving and having this completely miserable experience. So I do like that element, that comedy that he brings out. But sometimes it's very important to not do that.
Yeah. Well, it's
because-
not constant.
Yeah.
It's not a comedy, it's just his moments.
Yeah, so like I consciously, there's moments where I say we can't have any laughs here. It's always more important to have him be this sinister, scary character than this jokester. So that's a fine line that we're always walking. Like, well, I don't want to go too far with the jokes. Like when he kills Tara, when he shoots her, you know, like I didn't want any jokes after he kills her, after he like shoots her a bunch of times.
And that was shocking. I don't know who saw that coming. I didn't.
Yeah.
You don't expect that,
Right.
right?
But it was important that the audience didn't laugh at that. I didn't
Yeah,
want the
for
audience
sure.
laughing at her death. It was
No.
supposed to be horrible and disturbing. And that was
And you expected her to be the final
Right.
girl, so you didn't even see that coming because
Right.
you expect her to get away. Yes, sir.
That was actually, I'm sorry. That was one of my favorite moments when we did the first screening of it, was the different reactions that happened at the same time in that theater. It was like, you had people screaming because they got scared. You had people screaming because they're like, no! What the fuck? They had other people just start laughing their heads off. Like, that was ballsy, that was awesome. It was just, that was so cool about that
How
moment.
spontaneous and how unpredictable the movie was. The people just didn't trust me anymore. Like it was just.
Well, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, but it really was a wild reaction to hear.
Sir.
Sorry.
So, as in being a horror icon, lover in horror movies, how do you feel now that both of you especially have created a horror icon? How does that feel to you? It just, you know, that you're in the ranks now of all these other horror icons. How incredible it is that.
Even just saying that, it doesn't sink in. It's very surreal. I don't know. Personally, I feel like, you know, I still have to earn that, and I feel like I'm still striving.
You have earned it. That's amazing.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
But
I get mad when I see pictures and Mark's not in it. I'm like, probably what it
thank you, man.
I think we did need a new villain. It's been a very long time since we've had a new villain, right?
We need some new blood. I that's my hope. Is not just going to be art. I hope we've inspired more people to come and create some cool characters. Like when I saw Psycho Gorman earlier this year, I'm like, yes, more of this kind of stuff. Yes, because it's more creativity. I'm like, it's not just rehashing the same thing over and over again. It's like, I mean, like when Freddy and Jason and Mike Myers came out, they took the mantle from the great, you know, the old Universal monsters, I guess you could say, Dracula and Frankenstein, Wolfman. Great, it was like it's like new blood. We got to keep finding new ways to keep going forward with this genre, and trying new things and experimenting, not just not staying in the past, but you got to keep moving forward with it. And I'm hoping to see more filmmakers doing that.
Yeah, I really think one of the big reasons why art works is because at his core, he's really just a silent Freddy. And that's like a combination that you didn't have yet out of all the slashers that we grew up loving.
He's also a silent Freddy from the part 1 and then part 4.
Yes,
all at the
exactly.
same time.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's what, I mean, again, those are my favorites, and I love Freddy so much, but I gravitated a little more toward the silent killers for some reason. So it was, you know, I had to have my killer be silent, but giving him that sense of humor and having that come through was a fun thing to do. It was very unique for me to explore.
I think it's brilliant how he comes through. It's great. You don't always get to talk to be funny.
Right, and you know everything he's thinking.
Yes. I don't know, do we? I mean, I'm just saying.
But he's very expressive. I mean,
Yes.
you know exactly what's, you know, emotion.
It's terrific. What about Terrifier Part 2? So that's coming up.
It's gonna be a rom-com.
Oh, absolutely.
With
Hey,
musical
just
numbers.
because it's a romantic comedy doesn't mean you can't have a decapitation or a bucket of
I
body
do have
parts.
my background in musical theater, so you know, I'm just gonna all of a sudden just erupt the song halfway through.
Hell yeah. I love my horror movies with a good musical break or a good dance break. No, you think I'm joking? No. Anything with a 5-minute dance break, like maybe prom night, I'm all about it.
Wow. So what are the odds on that? I just showed her a clip from part 2.
Yes, I got to see a sneak, and I was very excited. Yeah, when I saw what I saw, I was like, oh yeah.
You said people are gonna hate you for this.
Yeah.
I don't even know what you showed her yet, so you're gonna have to
Okay.
come say. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
And I want to go, by the way.
Yeah.
Can we do like an interactive experience?
Oh,
We
that's.
have that set. We have the set still standing.
Yeah.
We might do something with it.
Who knows?
Seems to be like a pop-up bar.
Yeah.
And if you guys want to know what we're talking about, go see Terrifier Part 2. Do we have a release yet, or is it still in process? I
Yeah.
know everyone asks
Yeah, I
me. I'm
know.
sorry. I'm no different.
No, I mean, it's great that people want it out so bad, so I don't get mad at the question. It's just, it's frustrating. Like, I feel bad that it's not out yet, because we're
No.
going to have it out by Halloween. But,
Doesn't look like it's going there
no,
yet.
it's going to be early next year.
Okay.
But again, the movie is just so much, like, I can't
Yeah.
even begin to explain. Even though it's still a low-budget movie, like, you might see it, I mean, we're all watching these mega Hollywood movies, so every day we're watching $200 million movies. But when you
I
see
don't know, man. We just talked to the guy from the Greasy Strangler, so I mean.
but in that comparison, I mean, we're still such a low-budget movie, but in comparison to the first one, it is just astronomically bigger on every level. It's such a bigger movie. And right now, the runtime is over 2 hours long, so it's almost, I mean, it's almost double the length of the first movie. So it's just a lot of work
Of course.
with post-production. It's just a
Yeah.
lot of coloring, a lot of sound design. There's some visual effects. There's a lot of work, but I mean, the picture's locked. I know what it is. I've watched it many, many times.
Wonderful.
We're locking in the soundtrack right now because there's a lot of music. Aside from the score that Paul Wiley's doing an incredible job.
That score is creepy. It's good.
He's got some great new tracks. In it.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's amazing. But there's a lot of music, and it's like the lead character, Cien, is a huge music fan. So, and there's a big chunk of the movie that takes place in a club on Halloween. So we're getting all these really awesome songs in it right now, which is cool. But it looks amazing. You guys are really gonna dig it.
I will say that like the one big huge kill scene that we have in this movie, we had originally started filming it right before the pandemic, and COVID happened. We're like, ah, crap, what are we gonna do? Like, well, this gives us a little bit more time. So we're like, okay, well, we now have time to actually flesh this out more than what we had originally planned. And I think what we were originally starting to film was great. It would have been totally serviceable. Everybody would have been happy with it. But what he came up with during the pandemic, he went to some dark places for this scene.
Thanks, Rhoda.
It's one of these things I think people are gonna like hate me. They're like, I cannot believe you guys did that because it was vicious.
It's very angry.
Yeah.
and it's long.
And it's very long. It took us about a week to film this scene because it's so prosthetic heavy. Because that's what we wanted. We wanted to keep everything still grounded like that with prosthetics. And he created this one thing. I can't spoil, of course, but it's this amazing thing that he created. When I walked in the room and saw this thing sitting there, I was like, holy! And oh my gosh! Is when you see it, you'll know. And it's just it's unbelievable. And he just went above and beyond. And it's none of this would have happened if it weren't for the pandemic, oddly enough. So like that's actually something good that's come out of this horrible thing that's happened to us all. And it's just it gave us more time to really flesh things out and really do the kind of film we wanted to do.
Don't have to rush through it.
Yeah.
Right?
No, that's true.
He outdid himself. I'm like, I can't wait for you to see this scene.
Well, and so did he. And I said this, like, we take so many chances in this one. Like, we don't play anything safe. Like, a lot of risky things. We could have just made another by the numbers Terrifier, just like art slash it and that's it. But
Just
this,
basically going to be the same movie, and that's not
yeah,
what you want.
No. This is radically different with the characters and this whole supernatural element. There's like a fantasy element. It's such a different movie. But the only thing that is, I can guarantee you're going to be happy with Art the Clown. Like, he killed it again. Like, all the stuff that he
No
does.
pun intended.
Yeah. Dave's fantastic in it, so you're going to love, Art the Clown's not going to disappoint. That I can promise you.
All right, so we're aiming for early next year.
Yeah.
If everything goes according to plan, maybe a nice Valentine's Day rom-com with Art the
Yeah.
Clown, huh? Something to take your date to on Valentine's Day.
Give her your heart, literally.
Buckets of body parts. That's our motto at the Dolls of Horror. My co-host, who unfortunately cannot be here today, she always talks about body parts she might want to keep from the film as like a prop. And she basically was like, yeah, I want the hatchet guts and this bucket of body parts, and then I'll have a bucket of eyeballs, and I'll make people feel them and guess which eyeball goes to which movie.
Ooh, the Friday the 13th Part 3 eyeball, that's the one you want.
That's what started the conversation on the eyeballs,
Wow.
because, well, first of all, there's that great eyeball popping scene,
That's what I'm talking
but
about.
there's the
Oh, when the guys hold
the
it for the
new
end?
Crazy Ralph.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
gave this to me.
Yep.
I think that was actually her prop that she wanted to own, or maybe it was mine. I don't remember. But yeah, so she has a thing with eyeballs too.
Yeah.
So yes, shout out to you, Jamie, and your bucket of body parts.
We do things with almost every body part too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm running out of things to
Are there any
take
scenes
apart.
Yeah, really,
Create
you're
next
right.
time?
It's basically anatomy. It's just like, we really do.
What else can you do?
I'm just thinking like, yeah, we use that, we
That is tricky though, because like he's not Jigsaw, so we're never going to come up with these elaborate torture techniques. So it is tricky. Like, how many things can you do to a person in the old school slasher style? That's, you still keep it fresh. So that's another challenge, like a really hard challenge, honestly.
Well, so far you guys have succeeded, and from what I saw today, you succeeded again. So, yeah, guys, stay tuned for that. What conventions do you have coming up besides the one you're at now? Do you know?
Yes. Yeah, New Jersey Horror Con next weekend.
Next weekend, okay.
Then Texas Frightmare after that.
Yeah.
Then it gets cloudy.
Yeah, we do like a Spooky Empire.
Okay.
We're going to be,
Some love spooky.
live, we're doing some more Days of the Dead.
Yeah.
So, yes, we're
Oh, the Vegas days in the
Vegas. Are you guys coming back to Chicago? Or?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're getting out there. We're happy to be on.
Yeah.
Well, we're happy that you guys are out there too.
Basically, I'm doing one up in Virginia too. Sometimes there's so many now.
It all blends together.
I'm like,
Well, everyone's playing catch up now because we missed all the last year, so now it's just they're all here.
Tomorrow we have the photo op.
Yeah.
I'm putting it in blood too, which I don't typically do, but I'm going to do that.
Guys, you gotta get the bloody art clown photo op. Art and costume, okay?
Should we do art versus art?
yeah, of course.
Yes. You have to ask.
Yes.
Oh, sweet.
I love it.
Well, David, Damien, thank you so much for coming out and playing with us and
Thank you.
for the great conversation.
Yes, thank you guys so much.
For letting me do a handstand. It was fun. We can do that again. I'll perfect it even more better next time.
Excellent.
Chicago.
Sorry.
All right, guys. Thank you. Give it a
Thank you guys. Thank you so much.